Each week, nearly a dozen movies are released theatrically. 40 films a month, more than 400 a year. That's a plethora of cinema. Too much cinema. You'd have to be an addict to see all that. But don't fret. We've got you covered. This is CinemAddicts.
Hey everyone, what's up? It's a new week of CinemAddicts. This is CinemAddicts episode 277. We are covering movies releasing for the week of Friday, January 17th, 2025. Eric Holmes, how are you, buddy?
Not bad.
What's new? Anything exciting?
Yeah, got a bunch of pages done on the script. Someone covered it a day for me, so I just got a bunch of pages, like 40 pages done in a day. It was good stuff.
Yeah, Patera, right? How far are you along this adaptation?
Probably about halfway. I could probably use another day or two off and then just blast through it. But we're getting through it slowly but surely. But that day off helped a lot.
Are you enjoying the writing process so far?
Yeah. Like when I can sit down and focus on it, it's awesome. But when I come home from work or whatever and get just have to force the time, not so fun. But
yeah, when you're tired and everything, you're just... Or you have to watch all these movies that you have to do for CinemAddicts. It's a lot of work to do during a week when you have a full-time job, right? Plus the screenwriting, that's a lot of stuff to handle.
Yeah, a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's all fun.
Yeah, that's a good attitude. That's a very good attitude. For this week, we have the movies Nightcall. We have a movie called Wish You Were Here. There is another movie called Autumn and the Black Jaguar. There's a movie called Alarum, which we did not get to due to screener issues. So I swapped that movie for a movie called Man with No Past. I apologize to you guys listeners because my voice might be a little bit weird because I have a little bit of a cold. So maybe there's going to be a lot more talking from Eric this episode and maybe a lot more coughing from me as well. But the good thing is we both have seen a lot of movies this week. We'll be able to cover a lot of stuff. Eric, what do you want to plug? What else you want to talk about before we get into our featured reviews?
Well, I guess we got we talk about this. We got the Patreon coming up with what was the year? 1980 something or other.
I think it's 1985. I think it's either 1985 or 1986 whenever Goonies was released. So we're covering the Goonies, which I haven't seen, and Commando. The Goonies is from Angie Clark. Thank you, Angie, for that. And Ryan Smith gave us Commando, which is a good thing. So
there you go.
We'll be doing Patreon in a couple of weeks.
You are in for a treat.
In for a treat. So we'll see. On my end, it's been kind of crazy because I've been dealing with the fires here in Los Angeles. Got a cold, been having to evacuate. I've had to evacuate a couple of times from my family home. So it's been kind of a crazy 2 weeks. Been in and out and, so to speak, family show. And I'm going to cough in a second one. Hopefully this week, the winds have died down. And by next week, everything will be fine with the winds. Eric, don't ever buy homes. I think I said this last week. Don't ever buy property in LA. You're going to be faced with earthquakes, fires, looting. It's just a nightmare. So just if you're inclined to buy property and if you're a millionaire.
Houses cost money, which I don't have. So that's not an issue I'll have to worry about.
Okay. You don't have issues. Oh, that's yeah. Neither do I. And neither does Bruce. We're all poor cinematics, poor.
There you go.
In the pocket, but not in spirit. We are very rich in spirit. Speaking of Bruce Purkey, his Cinem-Attic will be bringing up the rear for this episode. As usual, he has a bunch of reviews. A lot of them are backups, or not backups, but also added reviews to Nightcall and a movie called Wish You Were Here as well. So let's get started with a movie called Nightcall. Eric Holmes, you saw it about several days ago. You had some comments on our Facebook Messenger about it. Can you just set up the plot line, what Nightcall is all about?
Yeah, there's a locksmith and a lady has him basically break into her house or her apartment. And he does that. And then it turns out, oh, that's not her apartment.
Yeah, so Maddie,
not only...
The guy is Maddie. It looks like he's breaking into apartments, which he does. The reason why he breaks into apartments is he is a very good locksmith. That is his job, is to go around town and actually breaking into people's homes and fixing their locks if they can't get into their homes. And one evening, he gets a sort of a midnight call from this young woman named Claire, and he tries to break in. He breaks into her supposed domicile. When he gets in through the locksmith, she says, "Oh, my ID is in the..." He asked, before he breaks down the door, he asked for her ID, and she says her ID is not with her. It's in the apartment. And he says, "Okay, I trust you. You seem They bond over some kind of song from Petula Clark, some I think French song from Petula Clark, and she actually they're having good banter. So he's kind of trusting her, and he says, okay. So he breaks down the door, and when he goes in, she takes some stuff from the apartment, sort of a she has a what like a shopping bag or a trash bag filled with something, and he's wondering what's going on. He goes, "Oh, I if I recall," she says, I forgot my ID or all my information downstairs. I got to get it for you. It's not in the apartment." So, and she tells him, "Why don't you, Maddie? Why don't you just wait in the apartment and I'll come up and I'll get you the stuff, get you all my information." And he goes, "Okay." So he waits in the apartment, beat one, beat two, and he hears a phone call. Either he hears a phone call or he gets the call from her from his cell phone. I forgot which one it is. I think maybe from his cell phone. And he says, Claire says, "Get out of the apartment now. You're in danger." And then what unfolds is, well, I don't want to give too much away because this night call becomes a very, very dangerous proposition for Maddie because Claire, she runs off with something very valuable to this seeming mob boss or this crime lord or this just criminal who has a bunch of henchmen who are looking for a lot of money that was left in that apartment. And the rest of the evening, this is a French language film, has Maddie trying to find the money that Claire has. And if it doesn't find that money, Maddie will be dead. So that is the premise for Night Call. It's the young student who's Maddie. The locksmith is played by Jonathan Feltre. Natasha Creef plays Claire. It's in theaters January 17th. Eric Holmes, your review of the movie.
Yeah, it's a pretty tight thriller, a pretty good one at that. There's a bit like background stuff with like Black Lives Matter, and I wish they would have either played with that more or just took it out altogether because it just they don't really do too much with it. Like maybe towards the end they kind of say something about it, but it's not doesn't feel that important to the story that they're telling because the story is basically just a crime thriller. And then so the Black Lives Matter part, whenever that pops up, it's like, okay, here's the thing. Beyond that,
The Black Lives Matter is in reference to the riots that are going on within the city because of
yeah,
this either beating of this youth or whatnot. So there is that Black Lives Matter riots, and these riots are not part of the central theme of Night Call. Like Eric was saying, it's more of an action thriller straight up. But I think what the director does, whether you like it or not, is he uses that Black Lives Matter, those riots, as a way to form this divide between the police and the public. But then there's a lot of people in this crowd, and the actual physical manifestation of that riot actually lends itself to the action thriller of what's going on. So I think as an action piece, the BLM movement in France at that those riots are a perfect setting, a complement to the action that's going on. But I think what Eric is saying, you don't think it could have been another riot, didn't have to be BLM because it's not a really good connection with the theme.
I don't even think the riot needed to be there. Black Lives
Really?
Matter or otherwise. No,
Why?
because it's about Maddie finding Claire, finding the money, and getting it back to the guy that's threatening him.
Really?
I think the only time the Black Lives Matter thing made sense was early on when he should have called the cops, and he decides not to.
Because of what's going on, right? Exactly. Yeah.
But again, like you can do that without Black Lives Matter. Just a black guy calling the cops is usually not a great idea. It's kind of that's why Black Lives Matter was a thing to begin with. It's known that, oh, if I call the cops, like, they're just gonna put a bullet in my head or, beat me to death or something like that. There's that already, all that's already understood. So I don't think you need the Black Lives Matter on top of that to explain that away. But I guess that was one thing they use. But yeah, the most of it's just the cat and mouse game because, well, I don't know how much we want to say, but like
Not too much.
he's trying to find Claire,
Right.
and he's being threatened by the guy that the valuables got stolen from. And then there's another cat
Element.
that kind of comes out of the woodwork, and then so like the cat and mouse kind of goes a bunch of different directions, and that's the part I really responded to. The thriller part, it was pretty well done.
Right. And to be fair, the riot stuff is pretty actually within Night Call I don't say I'm not. It doesn't dominate the movie, but it is a it's a pretty hefty element because when he's being chased around or when he's chasing, they have to get the henchman or Maddie, who is the protagonist. They have to get around the cops, the people, and actually within the plot line, there is certain something with the police force, which is part of the narrative as well, an important part of the narrative, which is I thought was interesting. Whether or not it's BLM, I think you thought it wasn't unnecessary. I was fine with it. I mean, it's neither here nor there. I think we're both
Yeah.
kind of saying the same thing about Nightcall. What did you most love about this movie?
It had a kind of like a Catch the Fair One vibe, or like a Jeremy Saulnier kind of vibe to it. It's there's a version of this that's kind of like the B movie action version of this, but this kind of went more personal, more emotional in certain regards that you don't usually see in kind of movies like this.
Yeah, what really
And
works for me for Nightcall is Jonathan Feltre as the lead. He's very, very good
yeah,
as Maddie. He's like Eric was saying, he has like those chess moves, and he's an interesting person to watch. And like Catch the Fair One, the main protagonist was very good. It's that with these chase thrillers, you need someone that you really are invested in. And I was invested in Maddie's plight thanks to the acting of Jonathan Feltre. So sorry, Eric, you were saying.
oh no, I agree with all that. I thought it was pretty well directed, and even though like the BLM stuff felt kind of tacked on, I still pretty much loved the movie, and I'm very interested to see what was it Michiel Blanchard?
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if I got
Close enough. Close enough.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
either way, yeah, the director made a hell of a movie, and I look forward to seeing what else they have.
Okay. Final thoughts and your rating on Nightcall, which by the way is in theaters January 17th.
I would give this 4.5,
Okay.
and it could actually probably go up in another viewing or two. This is like one of those like because the movie's pretty short too. It's like 90 minutes here or there, and it's one of those like if someone had it on, I would just probably sit and watch the rest of it. It's one of those kind of movies.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. I'm gonna cough again. I apologize, folks, because I'm in a coughing fit for this episode, but my rating is it's a solid action thriller, high rewatchability factor. I'm glad it's January. We got a really good action thriller as part of our cinematics universe. So Nightcall for me, 4 stars. Give it 4 stars.
All right, all right.
All right, all right. Next up is a movie called Wish You Were Here. It's the directing debut of Julia Stiles. Are you a fan of Julia Stiles over the years? She was in Orphan 2. What is it? Save the Last Dance. I mean, do you know Julia Stiles' work a little bit?
I like Julia Stiles in general. I don't like the orphan movies, but
Mm.
that's has nothing to do with her. I just don't like the premise. But yeah, just in general, whenever she pops up, she's usually pretty good, especially lately.
Right. I'm on the flip side, I absolutely adore the Orphan movies. Speaking of Orphan and Orphan 2, Julia Stiles reunites with Orphan 2 star Isabel Furman for Wish You Were Here. Julia Stiles does not act in this movie, rather, she makes her feature directing debut. And the movie here, I'm going to read right now from my iPad the actual plot line, and then we're going to see what we're going to want to say after that. Okay, it's a romantic film based on a best-selling novel. Wish You Were Here. Okay, it stars Isabel Furman, Mena Massoud, Jennifer Grey, and Kelsey Grammer. It's a quote a fascinating movie about leaving the everyday world behind to take a chance on true romance. When the perfect night with a perfect stranger, and suddenly the next morning, Charlotte searches for answers and meaning in her disappointing life until she uncovers a secret that changes everything. Eric Holmes, that is a very vague plot summary. What can we really talk about with Wish You Were Here? And I'm going to frame this in two ways, Eric. If you have never seen the trailer for Wish You Were Here or read the book, to not know what we may divulge in the coming moments might be better for you as a viewer. That said, they showed what happened in the trailer, dude. You know what goes on in the trailer. So
Yeah.
Eric, I'm gonna let you lead.
It also says it on the IMDb.
I'm gonna let you lead on this. Do we? Okay, I just read you a vague plot line. So someone did that vague plot line. Do we go because IMDb and
I would stick with the vague plot line because even though it's out there, the movie kind of plays it because that thing doesn't happen till like almost 2/3 of the way through the movie. So the movie kind of plays it like it's a reveal or an event that happens. So we should probably not say too much about it.
why would they reveal that stuff, dude? In the trailer and in the thing, and
You got to sell the movie somehow. And hey, it's a love story. It's a romantic comedy. And if you're into that, you're gonna go for it. If you're not, you're not. So you need that extra hook, I guess, to pull in people that wouldn't otherwise watch it, maybe.
so ultimately, yeah, let's just backtrack again. Charlotte is played by Isabel Furman. She works at a Mexican restaurant with her best friend. They live together. Charlotte is a little bit directionless and aimless in her life, and understandable. She does not like her job as a waitress server at that restaurant because the supervisor, the boss, the manager is pretty much a dick. He's a he's a jerk. Okay,
A
but
Richard.
he's a Richard. He's a total Richard. So she's working in the Mexican restaurant. The only fun she has is with her best friend and when they're hanging out. One night they bump into a stranger played by Mina Masood, and he's very good at this. And this mysterious stranger, he's also a muralist, and he catches Charlotte's eye immediately. That's sort of a meet cute. And what happens is, as fates would have it, this meet cute turns into pretty much the night of their lives. Because the stranger, again played by Mina Masood, and Charlotte, played by Isabel Furman, they just really bond over a memorable evening. One of the things they do is, well, the muralist, the stranger, he starts doing a mural on the side of a building, a brick building. And it's really beautiful and it encapsulates sort of their night together. And the problem is the next day they have sort of a falling out and it becomes a one night stand, supposedly. And the stranger sort of dismisses her, not in a mean way, but in a sort of a cold, detached way. And Charlotte,
Kind of a mean way.
okay, fair, fair. Okay,
I
then
mean, he basically just comes up, "You're not my girlfriend," like he was being really confrontational towards her.
okay, whatever, Eric. I've said that to every single girl in my life. Okay,
I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, I'm just saying. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding, Eric. Okay, so you're a good point. I defer to your judgment. You're actually right. I stand corrected, or in this case, I sit corrected. So what happens is Charlotte is a little bit heartbroken because a memorable night turns into something bad in the morning. The morning after is not so good for Charlotte and not so good for the stranger. Ultimately, he ends up ghosting her and she moves on with her life. And Eric was saying the reveal doesn't happen until two-thirds. I'm thinking maybe he says two-thirds is 66%. I'm thinking 57 or 56%. So I'm just splitting hairs. So it happens further into the reveal. And what's weird is, listeners, if you have no idea what Wish You Were Here is about, I'm going to defer to Eric and as far as the real movie review, but I knew everything that was going to happen, and I still ended up enjoying this movie because it was I thought the performances with between the chemistry and the performances of Mina and Isabel were excellent. They are the heart of the movie. I really love what this movie had to say. When we get to that third act, when you really deal with their relationship, their connection, I was locked in. That is the strongest part of the movie. The supporting characters I was fine with. It's something that you'd see in a usual romantic drama rom-com. It was kind of rote for me. I've seen these characters a million times before, but what stood out for me in this movie was the performances of Isabel Furman. And as a director, I think Julia Stiles has a lot of potential. She made a really solid romantic, it's not a comedy, romantic drama with Wish You Were Here. And also, this movie could be a very weepy, saccharine film, and she makes it. I don't know if Eric agrees with me on this. It's not as sappy as it could have been, which is, I think, a good thing. Eric, your thoughts on Wish You Were Here? I think you might be disagreeing with me with your look. I'm going to start coughing
Uh,
up a fit, so go ahead, do your Ulysses review of this movie.
well, first of all, I kind of disagree on the last third because I actually like the first two-thirds better. And then once the reveal happened, as the movie went on, I slowly started checking out just because of that. It was a little too sappy. And look, I get in moods where like throw me all the sap, I'll take it all. I just wasn't in the mood for it this time. And I think there's better versions of this kind of story, but everything leading up to that, I really enjoyed a lot. It was just, yeah. I can't say about the last third because that would be a spoiler, which, I mean, the movie, the marketing itself spoils it, but we're not going to do that here. It was a little too sappy. It's kind of starting to check out. All that said, I still enjoyed it. Like the first two-thirds was strong enough for me that I just kind of got over that last hump.
That's tough though, because the third act is supposed to bring everything home with that knockout punch. So you did not get that knockout punch.
No.
I'm wondering if you would even recommend this movie because the third act was subpar to the rest of the movie for you?
I would, because it's one of those kind of movies, like romantic drama, love story, or whatever. It does that pretty well. And if you're into that kind of movie, this is a good version of it. It's just the third act didn't quite land the way I think they wanted it to land. But that might be a me thing, not a, someone else that's into this kind of movie, maybe they eat it up. And if you do, good on you.
Yeah, no, I was fine with Isabel Fuhrman and Mina Masood. I mean, not that you weren't fine with them, but I really enjoyed their performances. They were the heart and soul of the movie, like I said. But ultimately, this movie is, I've seen a lot of movies like this, but I think it's because of those two actors and what this movie had to say towards the end. You and I are completely flipped out on this. We might, who knows? It'd be funny if we both gave it the same rating because I'm all about the last third and maybe the opening moments. You're about two-thirds. Okay, so it's interesting. So final rating, I mean review and rating for you. Final comments and rating for you, Eric, on Wish You Were
Yeah,
Here.
it's a really good love story. Kind of falls off in the last third, but according to Greg, it gets better in the last third.
Yeah.
So this might be like a watch it for yourself and see where you fall on that. But otherwise, I enjoyed watching it, enjoyed the characters, and especially early on, I was kind of like, what the hell is going on? So there was like that little bit of mystery to it. Give it 3.5.
Okay, 3.5 stars. What am I giving this? What am I giving Wish You Were Here, Eric Holmes?
4 stars.
I'm giving it 3.5 stars, exactly like Eric
Oh,
Holmes
damn.
said. 3.5 stars for Wish You Were Here.
Every
I
time you
think
set me up for that, I'm like, oh, he's doing the 4 star Greg thing. And
the three.
every time I say 4 stars, you come at me with something that's not that.
I think the good news is we both gave it 3.5 stars, which is a solid recommend for Wish You Were Here. And dear listener, we both like different parts of the movie. So you might like it way more than both of us. Or you may absolutely hate this movie or dislike it. Why? Because I know Bruce Purkey, what he thought of this movie. Wait till you listen to his review on Cinem-Attic. So I haven't listened to it, but I know Bruce is not as high on Wish You Were Here as me or Eric. So tell us what you think. Hit us up in theaters January 17th. Again, how did you think Julie Stiles did as a director? And I'm going to cough again.
I think she did pretty good. And I mean, she's been in movies forever. So like, not just Julia Stiles, but anyone that's been working in movies long enough, you figure they would just through osmosis, they would pick up a couple of things. So it doesn't surprise me too much that she did as well as she did in this. And much like the last movie, I hope she gets to do it again.
Okay, very cool. So Nightcall and well, we both recommend Nightcall. We both recommend Wish You Were Here. Those are two good movies to recommend. I'm going to quickly rifle through two movies that maybe you should watch or not. Autumn and the Black Jaguar. Eric, did you actually give this one a shot and say 10 minutes in, I'm not going to watch this bleeping movie? Did you give that?
No, I was actually I just didn't have time for it. I actually did want to watch this one because this one looked like kind of schmaltzy or saccharine, but this looked like the kind of saccharine that like I would eat up. But you tell me whether it's that or not.
Well, Autumn and the Black Jaguar, it's in theaters January 17th. Here's the plot line. Growing up in the Amazon rainforest gave Autumn, played by Lumi Pollock, just the rarest of friendships. She befriended a lost jaguar cub when she was a little kid. And yeah, they bonded as a kid. So it's a little kid and a baby jaguar, black jaguar bonding. I mean, who's not gonna like Autumn and the Black Jaguar? But Autumn is not in the Amazon anymore. A lot of it is it's set in present day, and she is a teenager going to high school. She's living with her father. Her mother died tragically in the Amazon, which I'm not going to divulge how she died. But what happens is Autumn is still, as a teenager, still holds on to her dreams as a youth when she loves animals and she's an activist, animal activist. And when she just comes upon letters that the tribe that she lived with in the Amazon sent to her dad, which her dad has been keeping letters from her for years, she starts reading these letters and realizes that the jaguar she bonded with might be in danger, as well as that whole ecosystem. She decides to leave her city, go on a plane to the Amazon, and yeah, try to make a difference. A little kid, a teenager trying to make a difference out in the Amazon. Following her is Anya, or Anja, I don't know how to pronounce the name. It's Anja. Anya, she's Autumn's biology teacher, and it's weird. Anya is so it's trying to protect Autumn, okay? And then so she follows Autumn all the way to the Amazon, and the rest of the movie deals with Autumn and Anya adventures in the Amazon as they try to find the Jaguar. And that is the premise of Autumn and the Black Jaguar. Eric, while I cough again, what do you think of that premise? Does that make you want to see it more or make you want to see it less?
Makes me want to see it more. With this one, I watched the trailer and it just looked adorable. Looked like a good family movie.
It,
But the way you're describing it makes it seem like maybe it's a little darker than what I thought it might have been.
it has dark moments. And look, I have a niece. Her name's Claire. You hear her at the end of every episode. She's 8 years old. This is a perfect movie to see with your kids, fellow children, and it's a good, solid family movie. Also, it's directed by, I don't know how to pronounce the name, directed by Gilles de Mestre. I don't know, but my bad on this, on the pronunciation. But this director, he actually shot a couple of good action sequences within the middle of Autumn and the Black Jaguar. There's a sequence where they're out in the waters and they're trying to elude poachers. And it's a really well mounted for a family movie action sequence because you get to see really the beauties of the nature. I don't think it was actually shot in the Amazon. I don't know where it was specifically shot, but the locales of this movie are gorgeous to look at. But Eric, you saw the trailer or whatnot, or you read the plot? So it
No,
looks like
I saw the trailer.
you saw the trailer. Looks like a harmless family film, right? Cute.
Yeah,
That's what you're gonna get with Autumn and the Black Jaguar.
sweet.
Lumi Pollock, she's good as the teenager, and she's has a lot of moxie. She does a lot. She makes a lot of mistakes. She puts herself in harm's way for the Jaguar. The Jaguar's really cute. I had a good time. And the Emily Bett Rickards as the teacher who doesn't like mosquitoes like me and is very not a big fan. Even though she's a biology teacher, she can't really cut it out there in the jungle, in the rainforest initially. It's fun to watch her trying to slowly and gradually get used to life in the Amazon. It's a fun movie. It's a teaching moment for kids, and it's one of those movies where sometimes you'll see a family film and you're gonna see it with like Eric. I'm sure your nephews and nieces, and you're gonna say, "Oh, I'm sure when they were really young, you'd have to watch a lot of movies just because they loved it and you did not like it at all." Autumn and the Black Jaguar is a movie that you'll see with a kid and you'll find yourself enjoying it, hopefully. So my rating for Autumn and the Black Jaguar, which hits theaters January 17th, I mean, I was gonna give it 3 stars. I think I might have. I don't know what I'd put it on Letterbox. Maybe I gave it 3 stars a couple of days ago on Letterbox, but things change. I was thinking about it. Not such a bad movie. 3.5 stars. 3.5 stars for me for Autumn and the Black Jaguar. Lumi Pollock, she's still young, but she has a lot of potential as an actress as well. I'm looking forward to seeing her in more stuff and really enjoyed this family film. And the ending is really nice, little, cute, wrapped up in a button. This is not something that's going to surprise you, but sometimes you just need a nice little cheeseburger or just a nice little meal that you know it's not going to trip you up. So and
Kind of like that movie A Million Miles Away. Like you know exactly where this movie's going. You know exactly you've seen it a million times, but it just does it well. And
oh
then
man,
sometimes you're in the mood for that kind of thing.
and so yeah, exactly. Sometimes and with A Million Miles Away, that movie almost made me cry. It made me shed a couple tears. I love that movie so much. But yeah, Autumn and the Black Jaguar, although not as great as that movie A Million Miles or A Million Miles Away, still good, solid family movie. And I don't know if you ever have the chance. You still have the screener link. If you do watch it, do a rewind, Eric. You probably won't because I just foisted 4 or 5 movies for you and Bruce to watch next week, and you guys probably hate me. So unfortunately, I don't know if you'll get it. This is gonna be one of those movies you're not gonna get to see, I don't think. And you're gonna hate me again, Eric, because there's a movie called Man with No Past, which you did not see.
I
And
did not.
you know why you should have seen this movie.
Why is that?
This is not your bad because I actually pulled this movie for our show because Alarum, a movie that stars Sylvester Stallone, I believe, and Willa Fitzgerald, Mike Coulter, Scott Eastwood. We were not able to access that movie due to screener issues. So I decided to actually go with another movie, another action thriller called Man with No Past. This is the reason why probably you would want to see it. It's directed by James Bamford from the movie Air Force One Down. You've interviewed James Bamford. I know your memory sucks, just like my memory sucks. Do you remember
Yes.
anything about Air Force One Down? While I cough again, do you remember anything about that movie or your interview with
I remember so what I'm thinking of, it's the one where they have that wonder like in the tunnel area. It was like a
I didn't see the movie. You saw that, and I
oh
remember you liking
I
it.
either way there was a bunch of pretty awesome action scenes in there.
Yeah, and there's some pretty awesome action scenes with Man with No Past, stars John Voight, Marton Sokus, Adam Woodward, and it also has Philip Winchester in this. And I'm looking at the plotline. It also there's the actress. I don't know. Let me pull up the name on the actress, but it's an action-packed thriller, and here is the plotline. Waking up in an unfamiliar city, a man with no memory. This man is played by Edward Adam Woodward. He has no memory and he has to confront the mysteries of his own identity. It's available on digital on Friday, January 17th. And what's interesting about this is Man with No Past. You think it's going to be some kind of routine action thriller, but it's not. And I can't, it's one of these things where
I was
yeah,
hoping for a routine action thriller.
right. And you said Air Force One Down with James Bamford. You know, he said you recalled that it was some really good action sequences. And if James Bamford just did a movie, straight up simple movie with action, you and I would be all over it. But Man with No Past is very interesting because look, James Bamford, he does not get the kind of budget that, let's say, a Christopher Nolan movie does. Man with No Past is sort of on the ambition level of a Christopher Nolan film, if you can, yeah. So it's kind of a weird movie, and it's basically about how you have to actually understand. This guy is trying to understand the mysteries of his life, but it flashes back to different moments in history when he's having dreams of himself fighting a gladiator. He has dreams of himself in World War II fighting the Nazis. He has dreams of himself in different eras of the world in history being the good guy, this mysterious man. And then actors John Voight, Martin Sokus, and a couple of other people in this movie, they're also as part of his dream. And he's wondering, are these just dreams or is this reality? Has he lived in different moments? Yes, the main actress is Charlotte Vega. So Charlotte Vega is also a big actress, big part of the ensemble. So all of these actors are in different moments of history. And you're wondering, how does it connect to present day? And you're wondering, is present day an illusion? Because when they use the phones, that they're not really using cell phones that much. They're using landlines and they're reading from the newspaper. So a lot of this might be anachronistic. That's set in present day, but you're wondering what's going on. And you're wondering, what is Man with No Past all about? If you like movies with a lot of mystery, Man with No Past will be interesting because, dude, check this out. It's around over 100 minutes at least. And 1 second while I cough, it's over 100 minutes. And I'd say about 80% or 85% is mystery, is lead up to an eventual confrontation. And I think a lot of people will be checked out because a lot of it is story building until that one final moment. But again, to our point, we see so many action thrillers that are routine and we enjoy them. But I really give Bamford credit for making a movie that's sort of a little bit out of the norm and very ambitious with a limited budget. And this is a Paramount movie. And sometimes these Paramount movies that are sort of B movies are set on a lot. And there's that artifice of like they're very. Remember, because we reviewed several years ago that Paramount film Vindicta. These Paramount movies, and Air Force One Down is also that sort of aesthetic. You know, that Paramount aesthetic, which is B movies, pretty low budget, but as long as you have a good time, you have a good time. Kind of what Paramount does with their movies, like kind of what Saban does, Lionsgate, but this one is sort of within that Paramount aesthetic, which I enjoy.
With this, does the mystery like is it easy to follow and pays off, or is it this like one of those things where they probably could have cut out the mystery and just stuck with the action bits?
That's a good question. I think this movie really hinges upon your investment in the mystery, and it's a mystery that's easy to figure out anyway. So when everything is revealed at the end, you go, yeah, I know exactly what's going to happen, because a healthy amount of it is a lot of the action sequences are set in flashbacks. So World War II, you gotta have a World War II scene, several flashbacks. You're gonna have machine guns, bombs, and then you're gonna have a gladiator sequence, like maybe Roman times or whatever. So you're gonna see swords and shields, and so this was a way for Bamford to have different action sequences within different periods of history within the framework of a limited budget, which I thought was really good. That said, Man with No Past is the type of screenplay that should have had a Christopher Nolan budget. It's one of those kind of stories, which is very I thought very kind of interesting. But overall, this was a solid, not routine action thriller that, again, some people might not like it because they might just want the James Bamford touch, just action, 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 and very little story. But this movie has a lot of story and some action, but more story than action. But for me, Man with No Past, solid enough action thriller. Really enjoyed its ambition. 3.5 stars. 3.5 stars for Man with No Past. Available on digital Friday, January 17th.
You're 3.5 star Greg today.
I am 3.5 star Greg today. Next week, we will be reviewing a whole bunch of movies. There's a movie called Presence, a movie directed by Steven Soderbergh and written by David Koepp. You're a writer, Eric. You know who David Koepp is. He's a screenwriter behind Jurassic Park, and I'm a De Palma fan. David Koepp also wrote the screenplay to Snake Eyes, but I'm not going to interview them. I'm going to interview tomorrow. I might interview some of the actors from Presence. So have you seen the trailer for Presence at all, or anything like
No,
that?
I just saw like a poster for it.
Okay, and there's a movie called The Colors Within, which is an animated film, which I believe we might all have the screener links for. Hopefully down the road we're gonna get that, and then we have another movie called Rose and Brave the Dark. We'll see,
Which is a sequel to Hold the Dark.
which is a sequel to Hold the Dark. Eric, we're gonna
Probably not, but
probably not.
we can imagine.
We can imagine. Eric, we're going to get to Cinematics, not Cinem-Attic with Bruce Purkey in a second. I apologize again for all my coughing with this episode. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Just looking forward to the Patreon, and kind of curious about this Presence. See how that turns out.
Hopefully, Presence has some presence because I'm a huge Soderbergh fan. Are you a big Soderbergh guy, Eric Holmes? Or
Not like huge into him. Like he's got some movies that are like really good, and then other movies come out and I watch them. I'm like, it's fine.
give me some movies that you like? Maybe Traffic, I'm thinking. Traffic.
Yeah, Traffic. Aaron Brockovich was really good.
Yeah.
Didn't those
Ocean's
both
movies.
come out the same.
Ocean's.
Ocean's movies are fine. I don't like fall over myself over those.
I don't know if you saw Sex Lies videotape. That was way back in the day. But let's see.
Actually, I don't think I have. I don't think I have seen that one.
He did the remake of Solaris, which I thought was better than the original. I'm
Wow.
sorry. I mean, Solaris that's
that-
debatable.
They're both pretty sleep inducing.
Yes, they were both pretty sleep inducing, but I slept better with Soderbergh's. I'm not gonna throw shots at Tarkovsky, so I'm not gonna do that for Solaris. All right, so that is it, and we will be back next week for Cinematics episode 278. Me and Eric Holmes are leaving right now. You gonna say anything else before I cough again?
No, go ahead, cough away.
Cough away. I'm coughing away, and
This episode brought to you by Cough Drops,
Cough
Vicks
Drops.
Vapor Rub, and,
Yes, Vicks Vapor
water.
Rub. Yes, Vicks Vapor Rub. Sometimes I use that when I'm sick. I'm kidding. Okay, so family show. Here we go with Bruce Purkey. But before we get to Bruce, here's Claire.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for joining Cinematics.
Welcome back to the Cinem-Attic, the attic of cinema. Hey everybody, you just got done listening to Eric and Greg. Hopefully both of them were there for the whole show. This is the second week that Greg, the second week that Greg is dealing with the wildfires in California. As of the recording of this, he is still okay, but we are all wishing the best for him. Or if you pray, you can do that. Whatever it is you do to send out good vibrations into the universe for Greg and his family, so they are not getting any dire effects from the wildfires in California. I think today the winds are kicking up again, and that is not good news. The only good news is it hasn't hit his particular area yet, and hopefully that will maintain and continue to be the case. So once again, sending out good thoughts to Greg. And we are back to a pretty much normal show today. Not a recap, not a list of things we watched during the break, not that kind of a deal. This week, I don't have a ton of movies, so it should be a pretty normal length cinematic. I have 3 screeners that Greg kindly found for us. He is the master of getting us content to talk about. It is January, so who knows? Might be great. Might be some hidden gems out there. Might be some of the stuff they're throwing away at the end of the year or the beginning of the next year. We'll see. We've got 3 movies. Like I said, we've got Nightcall, we have Wish You Were Here, and we have Autumn and the Black Jaguar. Let's start with that. Autumn and the Black Jaguar. This is directed by Gilles de Maistre. I think it's like a French name or French Canadian. I think it's French. I saw like a lot of canal and stuff like that on there. So it's either French or French Canadian or something like that. Although everyone here speaks English, there are no subtitles, nothing like that. So those people who do not enjoy the subtitled movies will not be cursed by this movie. Also, I believe it is coming out in the theaters pretty widely. I think because it is a kids movie, they probably are looking for, getting that family audience, and it's, really aimed squarely at that. So I guess my initial disclaimer here is that this is a movie not aimed at my audience, old, old white dude. This is aimed probably for like tween, younger, somewhere in the like 8 to 14 range or something like that. It stars as Autumn, at least older Autumn, because you have a younger Autumn in a few flashbacks, Lumi Pollock, and then you have other characters. You have Hope, the Jaguar. I don't know what the Jaguar is actually named. Hope, Panther, whatever you want to call him. And then you have some other characters. Doesn't really matter so much. So the basic idea here is you've got Autumn who lived with her parents in the Amazonian rainforest, and her mom was a conservationist, and she died studying spiders. No, what was the line from that movie last year? Basically, you never see it; it's off screen. But apparently she died, and they were kind of trying to do conservation work and fight against poachers and stuff like that. You have some very cringy early scenes of these indigenous people in the rainforest. They seem definitely like, Hollywoodized versions of indigenous people, very bright and clean, and they have their very exotic wear. It borders on the cringy old noble savage trope a lot. And, the old wise leader of this indigenous group is writing letters to current day Autumn as she lives in the city, her normal life. Anyway, basically comes down to evil poachers are getting all of the animals, and there's only the one black jaguar left. The jaguar that she'd befriended as a child, and we get an extended flashback sequence of her, rolling around and chumming it up in the jungle with a kitten version of this jaguar. I don't know how many years ago at that point, probably like 5 or 6 years before the events of this movie. And they're best friends. And she calls it Hope. And now she finds out that this jaguar's in danger. In her current life, she is insufferable. You know how everyone hates Greta Thunberg? Not everyone doesn't. I don't really hate Greta Thunberg. I think she's doing the best she can with what she got in the world, but she's reviled, especially by the right, for just being this know-it-all, snotty, like just obnoxious, I'm your, savior of the world kind of person. That's what people don't like about her, which once again, I think is pretty unfair, but whatever. Autumn makes her look like just a calm, chill kid, because Autumn is just like, she is all about the environment and stuff in the most stupid way. And they had this one class where whatever, it's in middle school or whatever, where you have to do your classic biology class where you've got to dissect a frog or something. And she finds out going to dissect frogs. And she stands up and protests. And it's like, I'm going to call the ASPCA and blah, blah, blah. And just as a fit. And you're like, everything you need to know about Autumn in that moment. Of course, she has no problem later on because she hates her teacher for, I don't know why. Her teacher's broadly played as this kind of buffoon, overly slapsticky comedian version of a, I guess she's supposed to be like an entitled Western upper middle class woman. She's the biology teacher. She has a pet echidna or hedgehog. I think they're the same thing. Hedgehog that she seems to love, and she's in her office with the hedgehog. So Miss Environmentalist Animal Protector Autumn has no problem picking up the biology teacher's hedgehog and holding it out the window, threatening to kill it as a way to get her way from the biology teacher. So this is the great example that little Miss Autumn is. Anyway, the basic story is Autumn runs away, hops a flight back to, the rainforest because she is going to save the black jaguar. And biology teacher finds out this and freaks out and ends up following her. So it's preposterous from the outset. And once again, if I step back and think like this is made for me, this is made for little kids, and this is made for just to be like this kind of crazy, adventure where it's like, woo, wow, this kid is doing everything, and I'm identifying with the kid. Isn't this great? Isn't this cool? It's like, okay, I can see that. Obviously, it's going to be unrealistic. It's going to be very broad. It's going to be very broad strokes of the world. But if that's the case, I was telling Greg, it's like one of the worst examples for kids ever in movies because basically it's saying like, hey kids, if you just think you know what's right, don't tell your dad. Just disappear and hop a flight alone to South America in the middle of the forest where no one knows you, although supposedly they know her because, hey, she was there when she was a kid, where no one knows you, and just go chasing after some deadly poachers. No problem. It'll be all good. No, as you can probably tell, I didn't have much fun with this movie. I mean, honestly, it is harmless overall. I mean, but there's so many better movies for the same age group. I mean, we just had Flow, which doesn't have exactly the same themes, but it has a lot of the same themes, just done in a more creative, more exciting, more wonderful and beautiful and, for me, engaging way. Would a kid be bored by Flow but excited by Autumn and the Black Panther? I suppose that's possible, but Autumn is terrible. She's a terrible character. She's cruel and mean and just dumb. I just didn't like this movie. All right, well, it's whatever. If it's for you, you'll probably have a great time with it. I had a hard time making it through it. I'll give this 2 stars. I would probably go lower for my own personal rating, but to be realistic for the average person, it's two stars is fine. I'm not going to recommend it though. I think there's better movies for people the age this is aimed for. Okay, next up, Wish You Were Here, directed by Julia Stiles. Now, I did not go and look. I should have. Is this her first directorial feature? I'm guessing it is, but I could be wrong. And it stars as Charlotte Isabel Furman, and I wonder because they were paired together in that recent Orphan movie. Orphan, I forget what the name of it was, which was kind of a campy fun. And it turned out to be campy fun, and the kind of the weird chemistry, antagonistic chemistry between the Julia Stiles character and the Isabel Furman character was what really made that movie sing if it worked for you. So that must have somehow fueled them getting together for this. Anyway, Charlotte is the lead, played by Isabel Furman in Wish You Were Here. Adam, played by Mena Massoud. He's like the other main lead. And then there's some other characters in here. Most notably, the parents for Charlotte are played by Kelsey Grammer and Jennifer Grey. Although they don't have a ton to do in this movie, they're just kind of there. This is another movie. It's a movie, guys. This is another movie that doesn't really have its eyesights aimed on me. I'm not a giant fan of just kind of the, romantic comedy, or this isn't even really a romantic comedy, just straight up romance. I would say this is what more this is, or maybe a romantic tragedy. I don't know what you want to consider it. I think a romance is kind of a good way to call it. But a great romance I can love. And there's a lot of great romances that I enjoy. So although I wouldn't say I'm going out, like for horror movies, I'll be watching horror movies, good, bad, and different. I'm in to give them a try. Romance movies have to kind of win me over a little more. So that's what I guess would be a good way to approach it. I still can enjoy a romance movie, but if they're kind of tropey and very middle of the road, this might be one of those. Not so much for me. Whereas the same version of a horror movie, I might go for. Anyway, this movie, oh my gosh, for me, it looked like trope central for romance movies. You've got the 2 friends that work at the terrible job. They work at this Mexican restaurant, and it's just right out of the gate, it's supposed to be kind of this quirky, lighthearted, like sort of snarky humor that just seems really forced. In fact, the whole thing, the dialogue and the story seems forced. I think that's the biggest thing that kind of I came away with. Like they got this whole thing, this ongoing joke about each station at the Mexican restaurant, they have this little Mexican flag thing. Then you push the button and the flag like springs up and rings a bell, and that's supposed to call the wait person over to, adjust your order or get your order or whatever. And of course, it's just driving the people who work there crazy. And not Julia Stiles, I already forget. Isabel Furman's character, Charlotte, is one of those people. And okay, haha, yay. So that goes on for a little while. Anyway, she's going home, and they meet this random dude on the street and just like, oh my gosh, her friend is like, oh my gosh, he's cute. You need to ask him out, like in front of him. He's so cute. And she's like, whatever, this is awkward. And he's like, oh, this is awkward. Where am I? I'm lost. Where am I supposed to be? I've got my takeout. I'm trying to go home. And she and her friend's like, come on, come on, come on, talk to her. And then eventually one thing leads to another. They get together. They have this totally awesome date, random date out of nowhere. They just meet cute date, blah, blah, blah. They run around the city. They put a poster on this wall of his artwork. And of course, they look at it on this alley wall. And you're like, boy, I bet that's going to come into play as the movie goes on. And boy, it does. And I guess the twist, I'm not going to give a twist. There's supposed to be a big reveal in this movie, which I had two guesses of what was happening with his character in the first 5 minutes, and one of my guesses was exactly right. I don't think it's very subtle, so I don't think that the idea that they're revealing something about his character about a third of the way, maybe half of the way through this movie, is much of a reveal. So it's almost weird they just didn't go straight into the point of the movie. Let's just say they have their first date. After the date, he's confusingly uninterested or indifferent with her. She thinks, "Oh my gosh, I was duped. It was a one night stand, and I thought it was more than that because we had such a connection." She continues with her life, but is not able to forget him. Keeps getting reminders. Oh yeah, poster on the wall, that might be part of it. And then eventually their paths cross again, and you find out why he was disinterested. Reveal, big reveal, woo. But there's a lot of hints dropped early in the movie that something isn't quite right. And then the movie just devolves into full tropey schmaltz. And hey, if you're down for the tropey schmaltz, I mean, it's been done a million times, and you not off. I'd say it's been done better a lot of times. The Big Sick comes to mind as a great version of this movie. In fact, in every way better. The Big Sick. I hadn't even thought about the movie, but The Big Sick, I would say, go watch that. Don't watch this movie. If you want to go back way back, you got something like Love Story, which was also schmaltzy and terrible, but was a little more, I don't know if it was groundbreaking in its time, but at least it was notable. This movie is unfortunately just forgettable and wasting of all of the talents involved. It feels like, okay, this is something I did think while I was watching it. This feels like a movie that is based on like a young adult novel or something. And didn't look. I don't know if it's based on a novel. It might be an original script. It feels like they took a 15-year-old person, could be a girl, could be a guy, notebook where they are just pining over their love life and what happens. And they kind of come up with this idealized version of tragic love. And they kind of scribble it out in their notebook with all of the tropes that have ever come across their brain through watching some terrible movies. And this is the movie that kind of came out the other end. I could be 100% wrong. Maybe this is just originally from the brain of a 80-year-old dude. I could be wrong, but I have a feeling. Anyway, 2 stars. Again, I could not recommend this. This is not for me. But I think there are so many other better versions of this. My Old Ass. Yes, I'm not talking about myself. My Old Ass was a better version of this just this last year. Yeah, it wasn't for me. Okay, last but not least is the movie called Nightcall, directed by Michael Blanchard or Blanchard? Blanchard. I don't know. I think it's from Belgium. I think I wrote it down. Yeah, because it takes place in Brussels. So I'm pretty sure it's from Belgium. And that name could be pronounced a lot differently, but if you look at it Americanized, it's Blanchard. The main characters you need to know, there's several characters, but Maddie is the main dude, played by Jonathan Feltre, and then Claire does come in pretty much in this movie too, and she's played by Natasha Krief. So, basic idea of this movie. This movie has a great hook for a thriller, action thriller. This is one of those it happened in one night thrillers, plus it's one of those person living their normal life somehow encounters something that throws them way out of their world, and all of a sudden they are a person that has to deal with, not evil forces, but dangerous forces, and they are not equipped for it. It's not like a Die Hard where you've got a dude who is kind of equipped for it because he's a cop getting thrust into the situation. It's just an everyman getting thrust into a situation. The hook is this. I'm going to give you the hook a little bit. I don't want to spoil things. It's not like it's a huge twisty movie, but it's a movie where things progress and unfold. So you're kind of wondering, it's one of those, how is he going to get out of this? What is he going to do now? Kind of movies, as opposed to oh my gosh, this person is that. It's not quite that kind of a thing. But the hook is really great because it's nighttime in Brussels. You get the idea this guy's overnight. He works overnight as kind of an on-call locksmith for some service. And he's just driving around the city and he'll get a call and he has to go and unlock some drunk person's car or something, right? That's kind of his deal. And he gets a call. He meets this woman, Claire. He goes up to her apartment. She supposedly is locked out of this apartment. And she keeps telling him, like, I need to get let in. I locked myself out. He's like, I need some sort of ID to prove this. So your apartment, I'm not breaking you into someone else's apartment, right? No, 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 of course not. She seems really genuine. And she's younger and cute. And of course, they're having a little chit chat. You get a feeling they're kind of connecting a little bit. And she's like, well, of course, everything's locked inside. I ran out and I locked my ID. Everything's in there. He's like, I need some proof. And she identifies something about the inside of the apartment that only she would know. So he's like, nah, it's good enough for me. He unlocks the door, lets her in, and she says she's going to come in and get her ID. She's, oh my gosh, I left it. She basically makes another excuse that it was somewhere downstairs was the stuff instead. She has to go run and get it. Or I think maybe she said she had to do that to pay him. I forget what it was exactly. So he goes inside the apartment to wait for her and then gets a phone call immediately saying, get out of the apartment from her. And you're like, oh no, she not only duped him, but now he's in a dangerous situation. And of course, people might be coming his way that are not going to be happy to see him in the apartment, and he'll have to explain why he's there. Anyway, I thought that was a pretty great hook. A pretty great hook for an everyman. Now all of a sudden he's in way over his head. And of course, I'm not going to tell you what happens, but you can guess there's some bad influences or bad people that are not going to be happy that he's in this apartment. And then it becomes just an ongoing kind of a chase. There's a bit of a time thing in there too, but basically him having to try to get himself out of the situation that he unwittingly got himself stuck in. Now, I was kind of telling Eric and people like, hey, I think this is a great hidden gem for early in the year. This is the kind of movie we come across on CinemAddicts, have no idea about, and we're like, whoa, this movie is a lot better than it had to be. This is a lot more fun than I expected. I didn't know what this was going to be. I'm definitely not in the bag for kind of these middle of the road sort of action thrillers. I know that it's kind of the bread and butter sometimes of Eric and Greg. For me, not so much, but this one really struck me, and I thought it had a lot of energy and a lot of cool, like I was say energy. It just kept kind of driving forward, and the way the character, you kind of really rooted for him. He was a really great everyman, and he didn't seem ultimately skilled. There was a little bit of not a little bit of kind of things that had to happen to let him keep going in certain situations that were a little bit unbelievable. But a lot of times these kind of movies had a ton of those, and this only had a little bit for me. The one thing I know that kind of bugged Eric, he's probably already talked about it now, and I know he kind of mentioned it to me offline, was that he kind of didn't like there's a backdrop of Black Lives Matter like protest going on at night during this event as kind of just happening in the city, and it's a thing. And it becomes one of those sort of tropey things that you get in action movies sometimes where people end up having a chase through a parade or, a protest, that kind of a thing happens. And it seems kind of convenient, and it seems a little bit cynical to use Black Lives Matter in such a kind of a prop way, because it feels like it's going to be a bigger part of the story, mainly because the main character is a black gentleman. I was going to say African American, but he's in Belgium. I don't know what his origin is or anything. So let's just say a black guy. So the fact that he's there, that you have the situation, it seems like it could have been integral to the story to include such a charged group like Black Lives Matter in this story was kind of a missed opportunity, and probably would have been better either to change the reason for the protest or really integrate it into the story. And maybe it was more integrated in the story and they kind of cut some stuff out. I don't know. To me, it was like, well, this movie isn't really about that. So I kind of let it slide. It was more just the backdrop of some of the scenes in the movie. I know some people will be more bothered by it. I think Eric was a little more bothered by it. And I would say I would agree that it's a missed opportunity. It probably brings it down a little bit from being it's not, I would say it's a perfect movie, but from being a little bit higher rate. I'm going to probably go 4 stars in this movie. And it could be a 3-star banger for some. It could be lower for some. I just think that it surprised me, and I think it has a lot going for it. I really had a good time with it. It's fast paced. It gets to the point and it does its job really well, which is really what you want from a thriller or an action movie. You want it to be kind of lean, have a very clear story, a very clear hook. You know what you're trying to accomplish and you're rooting for the main character. That's about all you can expect from an action movie like this. It's not a fight movie. So you're not looking for like choreography and stuff. It's just more like the tension and the will he make it and will he get away and that kind of stuff all the way throughout. So I'm going to go, like I said, 4 stars on this. This also feels incredibly like a movie that will be snapped up and Americanized immediately because everything about it, even the Black Lives Matter stuff, if they want to use it, is so easy to adapt for an American audience. And it's such a simple, straightforward concept. Unfortunately, it'd probably be made into a really crappy Netflix movie, but it might be made into something a little bit better if the right people get involved. But as it stands, I think it's a 4-star movie. I think it's a little bit of a hidden gem. Do you have to run out to the movies to see it? Probably not. But if you're like looking for something, you have nothing to watch, this could be a good alternative. Or in a month or so, when it appears in some kind of a streaming service, this is one you could skip by and be missing out on a little bit of fun there. So once again, Nightcall would be my pick of the week. Look forward to seeing you guys next week. I'm sure Greg's got a bunch of interesting stuff lined up. I know that this is traditionally a hard time of the year to find great movies, but this is for all, just as a general rule for you guys, which I know a lot of you guys know this, but some people don't forget that like this is the time of year when all of the awards movies are becoming available for the average person because most of them were only in very limited releases in late November and December. And then in January, a lot of them get dropped in a way that we can all watch them and check them out. So I find this is a great time of year in some ways, especially for international features and just art house stuff that is never going to get a wide release. You're going to finally get a chance to watch it a lot of times this time of year. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. We will see you again next week.